In 2016, a British billionaire walked into Land Rover looking to buy the tooling for the old Defender, and they said no. So what does any reasonable industrialist do? Spend hundreds of millions of dollars building his own. Let me introduce you to the INEOS Grenadier Trialmaster. This is the answer to the question that no one asked, but secretly everyone wanted answered. What's it like? Buckle up, my friends. Let's go for a drive. I'm your host, Brian Makse, racer, lover of driving fast, fun things, and on this channel, you get reviews for drivers from drivers. Now, the INEOS Grenadier is all new, as we know, and I really didn't know what to expect. I'd heard about it for a couple of years, and when I finally saw this in person, I was really impressed. But what is more impressive is driving this thing, and before we get into what it's like to drive, let's have a look at it in a little more depth. Everybody who's seen this Grenadier absolutely loves it. More often than not, I am getting questions as to whether this is a vintage Defender or not. We know that's not the case. Because it's a ground-up design, they place the wheels at the extremes of the corners, and they're out there so much so that it makes the G-Wagon look like it's got an overbite. And in terms of design, I like to think that they used solely right angles and a whole lot of spite. The idea for this was conceived in Sir Jim Ratcliffe's favorite pub in London called the Grenadier, and you can't get any more British than that. Because this is a proper off-roader, it does use body-on-frame construction, and underneath there's a ladder frame that's up to 3.5 millimeters thick, and it's treated and coated to last for multiple lifetimes. This is the kind of truck where an old-school 4x4 philosophy and an unlimited budget meet up, and there are so many interesting features on this INEOS Grenadier, they make the competition blush. This thing has more German parts than a BMW owner's credit card statement. It's kind of like sending your kid to study abroad and they come back with an engineering degree and a drinking problem, which technically might be an improvement on both cultures. Under the hood is an engine you know. It's a BMW B58 3-liter turbocharged inline-six, makes 282 horsepower at 4,750 RPM and 332 pounds of torque from 1,750 to 4,000 RPM. The engine is positioned in the chassis to achieve that 800 millimeter weighting depth. The transmission's an 8-speed automatic from ZF or ZF for my American friends. It's got a beefed up torque converter. This does have full-time 4-wheel drive. The 2-speed transfer case is from Tremec. There's a center locking diff and optional front and rear locking diffs, which this Trialmaster does have. Solid axles front and rear from Carraro. They also supply John Deere, and I suppose if you wanted to, you could use your Grenadier for agricultural purposes. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, especially when they're built as tough as this Grenadier. Steering is a bit unique for the 20th century. It's a recirculating ball setup with hydraulic assist. Suspension is a 5-link setup front and rear with progressive coil springs from Eibach that allow for 9 degrees front and 12 degrees rear articulation and 23 inches of suspension travel. There's 10 inches of ground clearance, a little over 31 inches of weighting depth, a 35.5 degree approach angle, 28.2 breakover angle, and a 36.1 departure angle. Brakes are from Brembo, 2-piston calipers at the front, single at the rear. Wheels and tires are 17s or 18s. Because this is a Trialmaster, it does have 17s, and the standard wheels are steel. All Trialmasters come with 17-inch BFG KO2s. The roof can handle a static load of 925 pounds. The utility belt system just on the doors alone can hold almost 100 pounds, and that's more than enough for your recovery gear and certainly more than a week's worth of tea for you Brits. The infotainment system has all the modern features you've come to expect, including wireless Apple CarPlay, as well as Pathfinder navigation to help you with those off-road adventures, and off-road modes to help you track what you're doing on those off-road adventures. There's also a toot button in addition to the regular horn, and that's a softer horn to help you warn cyclists, another very British feature. Towing capacity is a little over 7,700 pounds, and curb weight of this Grenadier Trialmaster is 5,875 pounds. Did you know that 80% of you are not subscribed? Yes, it's true. 80% of you are not subscribed. I checked the data. So if you like the content on this channel, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button, make sure you like this, and if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Now back to your regularly scheduled episode. This is a very unique cockpit. It's unlike anything else in the market today. First, you're struck with this almost vertical glass here, and that provides a fantastic view of the road. Speaking of which, given that this has a square body shape, you can actually see the front fenders. You can see the corners, or the wings, as they say in England and other parts of the world, making this very easy to navigate off-road situations like we're doing right now, or parking in big cities like I've been doing as well. I think the only thing I'll add to the subject of visibility is that these outboard mirrors are a bit on the narrow side. Could use a wider field of view, and certainly in the city and on the freeway that would be helpful. And out the back window, well, as you know, that's a two-panel door, and the windows, the glass there, are on the small side. One of the things I love about the ergonomics is that this is the most comfortable place for my left elbow in automotive history. This is fairly tall, and it would be helpful for me with my short legs if it did have the optional steps, but alas, it does not. Still, I'm happy to hop in and out of this thing, at least for this extended week of testing, and I really can't complain. But if I were to order mine, I'd definitely get the steps simply because I'm short. Once you're here, however, these Recaro seats are fantastic. They are upholstered in cloth, which is just outstanding, and they're perfectly supportive for this little bit of off-roading we're doing, as well as long-distance drives on the road. Really love the fact that there is cloth here as the base upholstery. Yeah, you can get leather, but I'm not terribly interested in that. I don't think that's appropriate for something that is this capable off-road, although I do appreciate some people will prefer their Grenadiers with a leather interior. Once I'm here, however, I've got a great relationship to the pedals and the steering wheel. And with respect to the steering wheel, it's actually a little bit smaller in diameter than I would have expected. Nice rim thickness, and it's kind of a two-spoke design. There is a toot button here on the steering wheel, and that's to alert cyclists or maybe pedestrians a little bit more politely, and it's very British. This is the regular horn, and this is the toot button. Very polite. For instrumentation dead ahead, we have warning lights and feature lights. For example, we have all three diffs locked right now, and we are in the off-road mode. So all the stability, traction, ABS, all of that is switched off in this low-range off-road mode, and it works exceptionally well. It shuts off other things like parking sensors, and there is also a waiting mode, which shuts off the fans, the cooling fans, when you do go into some deep water. The speedometer is over here, along with a very simple tach and a gear indicator, as well as fuel level and water temp. We are running an off-road mode, so I do have one of the off-road screens showing right now, and it seems to work exceptionally well. I do use this on wireless Apple CarPlay when I'm driving on the road. The second level ergonomics are a little bit more military inspired, I would say. All of these switches, dials down here and up here are IP54K-Rated, and that does mean they can withstand pressure washing. It's actually spacious enough for me. I'm very happy, and a front seat passenger, no problem at all. You'll be very, very comfortable here. There's a decent amount of room in the second row, and I've had some passengers back there. They've been very happy. The one thing they did complain about is not a lot of foot room. Knee room, yes, that's not an issue, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of room for feet underneath these front seats. In terms of carrying stuff in here, well, that's not a problem. Behind the doors, there's plenty of room. The interior is voluminous. And then, of course, we have the utility belt on the outside, so we can hang some things from the outside, obviously not while you're driving. And on top of that, I mentioned earlier, you can put over 900 pounds as a static load on the roof, so you could camp on this thing if you so desired. In addition, you can also tow 7,700 pounds, so no issue hauling your stuff with this Grenadier. Having this BMW inline 6 under the hood is kind of like finding out Gordon Ramsay is back a house in your local pub. Surprisingly refined, but gets the work done. Now, in terms of acceleration, I think the 0 to 60 numbers or the quarter mile times might be a bit deceptive. I don't know, this might do 0 to 60 in 7 or 8 seconds, not quite sure, and I'm not going to measure it. But in the real world, the fact that this engine is tuned to make peak torque way low in the rev range through the middle of the rev range means you have maximum torque all the time. And yes, for you tuners out there, this is a B58 and probably capable of making a lot more power and a lot more torque than the way it comes from the factory. One of the nice things about this engine is that, of course, it operates smoothly. It's a BMW inline 6, but also on startup and when you're on the move, it's got a nice little rumble to it. It's not too aggressive. It's a little bit understated, but there's a little bit of attitude, certainly on startup, which is a nice added feature to this Grenadier. The transmission is calibrated perfectly for this Grenadier, whether we're on or off-road. In high range, low range, it does exactly what I want it to do. Shifts smoothly up and down the box. There is a manual mode if you so desire. Again, we've seen the shifter before, so you can control gears manually, and manual mode works properly. So to downshift, you push forward, and to upshift, you pull back, and that's absolutely the way it should be. Love the fact that this has a manual transfer case. We are in 4 high right now. We can lock the center diff simply by moving the lever over here. That's pretty easy. If we do want to go to low range, and of course we are in neutral right now, so we go back to high, bring the lever back down to low. Now we're in low range, and we can lock the center diff in low range by sliding it over here. Once we're in low range with the center diff lock, we can then lock the rear diff and then the front in that order. In terms of traction, in the past few months, we've driven a number of off-roaders at this location. And what I will say is that this Grenadier, with its 4-wheel drive system that is purely mechanical and some BFG KO2s, this has been the most capable off-roader at this spot. There's nothing here that challenges it. We have seen some limitations with some other off-roaders, and this doesn't seem to have any at this particular off-road spot. And I'm very, very impressed with how much traction this thing has and how much confidence it gives me to go anywhere I want off-road. Sure, some luxury SUV buyers might scoff at this manual transfer case and the fact that you have to push buttons to lock the front and rear diffs, but that is part of the Grenadier's charm. It makes no excuses, and it is a proper off-roader, so why not have a manual transfer case? Can we go down there? Well, of course we can. This is an INEOS Grenadier Trialmaster. No problem at all. This is not very challenging in the least. In terms of handling, the suspension was obviously developed for off-road use, and it works wonderfully here. Incredible amounts of suspension, articulation, and travel. As we've seen and experienced here, this suspension has incredible travel, incredible articulation, and really supports what's going on in terms of the rest of the driveline. No trouble at all. Soaking up all kinds of bumps, crawling over every kind of obstacle that has been presented to it. And in fact, I will say, in all the off-road testing I've done in this environment, this is head and shoulders above every other off-roader I've tested here in terms of capability. A lot of the other off-roaders we've tested here, we've found their limitations. Not that it was necessarily a bad thing, but This Grenadier has not demonstrated any of its limitations here in this environment, and color me impressed. And it does every single thing I want it to do. Approach angles, breakover angles, departure angles are legit. This thing will go just about anywhere. And because it was designed in Europe and for markets all around the world, it's not too wide and will fit in all kinds of places those wide American pickup truck off-roaders won't go. On-road, it's really not compromised either. It simply drives like a big 4x4 SUV more than anything else. It's comfortable on the road. It's actually relatively quiet. There's not a lot of road noise or wind noise. They've done a good job of isolating that. And one bonus is with this suspension, it'll soak up every pothole, every speed bump, and every other kind of road imperfection I encounter. Yeah, it's comfortable on the road. You and your passengers will be very comfortable on a long journey. Surprisingly, there's not a lot of wind noise or road noise either. They've done a great job isolating that. And on top of that, I do have to talk about the construction and the build quality of this thing. The way every single door and even the hood close is absolutely satisfying. It's like they clearly paid attention to those details. And when you open any of these doors, it's a nice mechanical experience. And when you close them, they all close, including the hood, with a satisfying thunk. All of the galvanized metal on this Grenadier seems like it's thicker than a politician's expense report. Now, when it comes to its dynamics, there is one compromise that I should mention. It has to do with the steering. So this is a recirculating ball setup. It's hydraulically assisted, which is just lovely because it adds to that wonderful mechanical character of this Grenadier. But when we're on the road, it is a little slow and it's not necessarily strong to return on center. So what that means is when you're driving day to day, certainly in an urban environment in which I drive, you have to be actively involved in the steering. Where modern cars are strong on center and happy to return on center, this one just needs a little bit of encouragement. But at the end of the day, we are driving, and that adds to the active part of driving this Grenadier. And as far as I'm concerned, that is a compromise I'm willing to accept. When it comes to off-road, though, the feedback through this steering system is absolutely incredible. You know exactly what's going on at each of the front contact patches, and that, I suppose, is the reason they went with this setup, because it does work off-road. Oh, that was the deepest water we've gone through. Not that it was sketchy by any stretch of the imagination, but it was fairly deep and it was a little bit of surprise, but no trouble getting through this water and mud. Wading depth of this Grenadier is over 30 inches, which is deeper than influencers' swimming pool photos and their personalities. Now, the last bit of dynamics that we have to talk about is the braking. I've got great control, feel, and modulation with this brake pedal, and there's no trouble stopping this at all. Now, when we're driving, we are in the off-road mode. So right now, again, we are in low range with all three diffs locked. And what that means is that there's no ABS, but with these KO2s, there's no trouble stopping this in this environment. And on the road, brakes work exactly as they should. This is a big 4x4 SUV, does weigh a fair bit, and the braking system has no trouble stopping this Grenadier on a dime. What's really impressive is when the suspension is working, when we're hitting some of these larger bumps or road imperfections, the suspension never ever gets to the limits of its travel. And body and wheel control, whatever these dampers are on here, They do an excellent job in terms of body and wheel control. There is really no secondary movement over larger bumps at speed, and when we're going off-road, no issues at all. I'm very impressed with how the suspension works, both on and off-road. It's exceptionally well resolved for this Grenadier. They've done an excellent job tuning and calibrating the suspension. And overall, the dynamics are actually better than I expected. Excellent off-road, as you can see, and on the road, it's very well-mannered. How do you spec yours? Well, that's a fairly complicated question to answer, depending on what kind of flavor you'd like in your off-roader. What you are looking at is an INEOS Grenadier Trialmaster in Magic Mushroom paint with the cloth interior. There's just one option on this particular model, and that is the winch on the nose. Base price in the US is $83,100, and as tested, this is $87,875. In Canada, this is $105,995 base, and as tested, this is $116,530 as tested, and these prices are before freight and local taxes. Now, in terms of speccing yours, first thing I have to say is everybody loves this paint color, and when I tell them the name of the paint, Magic Mushroom, they love it even more. But when it comes to speccing your INEOS Grenadier, you can get it in a couple of different flavors at this very moment. There is this, the Trailmaster, and there's also the Fieldmaster, which is less off-roady. And in terms of personalization, there are plenty of colors to choose from, leather upholstery, of course, and there are important things like side steps, rock rails, and all kinds of options just from the factory. And then, of course, you can get into the aftermarket, but that's a different question altogether. But INEOS offers enough bits and enough color choices to personalize your own Grenadier to your own specification. My verdict, well, let's get fuel consumption out of the way. INEOS says this will do about 15 miles per gallon combined. I'm actually not tracking it because I don't care, because I'm enjoying my time behind the wheel. And in fact, I'm looking for excuses to drive this Grenadier. But I'd love to hear from Grenadier owners and what kind of mileage you're getting in the real world as well. I'm very curious what the ownership experience is like. So for any INEOS Grenadier owners out there, please let me know what your experience is like and what it's like to live with this on a day-to-day basis. Now, about this Grenadier, there may be more capable off-roaders, and there are certainly more luxurious SUVs, and there may be less expensive ways to get into off-roading, but this Grenadier is something completely different. They named it after a pub, it's built like a tank, and they gave it a toot button. If this isn't the most British off-roader ever, then I don't know what is. You know how some luxury SUVs have a terrain response system with more modes than a Swiss Army knife? Yep. The Grenadier doesn't need one. It's got 3 locking diffs, proper low range, and solid axles. There's nothing else that combines BMW power, tractor axles, and enough utility belts to make Batman jealous, all wrapped in a package that doesn't apologize for being what it is. It's expensive, yes, but so is everything else that's built like a tank and comes with a warranty. After you spend some time behind the wheel, you realize that built like a tank isn't just a marketing slogan. Here, it's more like a humble brag. Another thing, the paint on this Grenadier seems thicker than a medieval castle wall, and just like a medieval castle, this thing is built to last the ages. The Grenadier is what happens when someone with unlimited resources looks at a modern SUV and says, nah, let's do it properly. It's a love letter to every off-roader that came before it, and when I'm behind the wheel of this Grenadier, I feel sorry for everybody who's in any kind of luxury SUV conventional crossover, because I don't think they'll ever understand the kind of adventurous experience you have anytime you're behind the wheel of a Grenadier. This entire vehicle is what happens when you take a 2 a.m. pub conversation about they just don't make them like that anymore at a whole lot of money, which might make this the most expensive hold my beer moment in automotive history. The fact that this was conceived in a pub called the Grenadier isn't just marketing hype, it's peak British problem solving, and some of humanity's biggest problems have been fixed in a pub, but mostly forgotten by the morning. The fact of the matter is, Sir Jim remembered and had the resources to make it happen. Is it perfect? No. But is it the kind of off-roader that certain types of drivers are looking for? Absolutely, without question. And if you are looking for adventure with your off-roader, well then go ahead and write your check for the INEOS Grenadier. Thanks for hanging out with me today and having a look at this INEOS Grenadier Trailmaster. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, you're not new. You know what to do. Smash the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, like this, and as always, sharing is caring. So please share this with your friends, especially on Reddit, because on Reddit, they really need to see reviews for drivers from drivers. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next time. And remember, cars don't understeer by themselves, not even INEOS Grenadiers.